Millionaire Rex Sterling, notorious for his high-stakes gambles, smirked over his wine. He was about to make a bet that would either cement his legend or shatter it. Across the plush velvet chairs of the Manhattan Grand Hotel's exclusive restaurant, his associates droned on about quarterly projections. Fashion, brands, success. It all tasted bland now. Rex had conquered that world, sculpted it to his will. He could take anyone, any nobody, and polish them into a diamond. Rex, drawled his friend Marcus, interrupting the financial jargon, you're always bragging about your Midas touch. Prove it. Take someone truly impossible, a real outlier, someone nobody would even look at twice. Rex's eyes, sharp as broken glass, gleamed, a challenge laced with doubt, delicious. Impossible, you say? Define impossible. Laughter rippled around the table, fueled by expensive scotch and competitive spirits. Marcus, grinning, pulled out his phone. Let's find your Everest. Fingers danced across screens, whispers traded until Marcus held up the phone, a triumphant glint in his eyes. Behold, Grace Miller owns a hole-in-the-wall bakery in Park Slope. Let's see you turn her into a cover girl. $1 million says you fail. Rex stared at the image. Grace Miller, a woman built for comfort, not runways. A flicker of something, doubt, sparked in his gut, then was instantly extinguished by the thrill of the impossible. This woman radiated contentment, a quiet defiance of the image-obsessed world Rex controlled. Convincing her would be war, and Rex Sterling lived for war. You're on, he said, his voice a low purr of predatory satisfaction. The next morning, Rex Sterling descended on Sarah Miller's Sweet Surrender bakery like a storm front. His custom Italian loafers clicked sharply on the worn wooden floor, echoing in the cozy space filled with the comforting aroma of vanilla and cinnamon. For Rex, it was suffocatingly quaint, utterly devoid of the sleek, sterile perfection he craved. Sarah, wiping flour from her hands, looked up from behind the counter. She didn't recognize the man, but every fiber of her being screamed intruder. His tailored suit, his predatory gaze screamed wrong universe. An invisible wall went up. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice a blend of Brooklyn grit and guarded curiosity. Rex moved closer, a panther circling its prey. "I'm not here for a cupcake, Sarah." Sarah's brow furrowed. "How do you know my name?" Suspicion tightened her voice. "And why are you here?" "I'm here to make you an offer," Rex said, his voice smooth as silk, dangerous as a razor. "Something that could change everything." Sarah folded her arms, instantly on alert. "I'm not interested in changing my life. I like my life." A cruel smile played on Rex's lips. "Happy? Look around, Sarah. Your happy bakery is sinking. Deny it all you want, but I see the numbers, I can save it." Anger flared in Sarah's eyes, hot and immediate. He was right, brutally right. The bakery was bleeding money, clinging to survival by a thread. But who was this ice-cold shark to waltz in and dissect her failures? Who are you to tell me how my life is going? What do you really want? Rex closed the distance, his presence invasive. "I want to transform you. In return, I resurrect your bakery. I'll make you a star, Sarah, bigger than you ever dreamed." Sarah laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. "Transform me? You're kidding, right?" "Jake Sterling," he corrected, his voice laced with impatience. "And I don't joke about success. I manufacture it. You will be my next masterpiece. With my guidance, your bakery will explode, and you, Sarah Miller, will become a woman the world can't ignore." Sarah met his gaze, defiance hardening her features. "I'm not a project, Jake. And frankly, why would I agree to this insane proposition?" Rex knew this was the linchpin, the point of resistance. But everyone had a pressure point. He just had to find Sarah's. "Because you need to, Sarah. Not for me, for yourself. This bakery, your dream, it's dying. This is your only lifeline." His words hit home, cold and sharp. He was right. The weight of the bakery's impending collapse was a constant ache in her chest. But his arrogance grated, his manipulative tone a slap in the face. "And what do you get out of this, huh? Why would someone like you care about a struggling neighborhood bakery?" Rex's smile chilled, losing all pretense of warmth. "Let's just say I enjoy a challenge, and transforming you, that will be my magnum opus." Sarah hesitated. His words were laced with venom, but the desperation to save her bakery clawed at her. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong about this whole offer. A hidden agenda pulsed beneath his polished surface, but the abyss of failure yawned before her. "If I agree, what happens?" With practiced speed, Rex produced a contract. "You follow my plan, every step, and I guarantee in a year your bakery will be thriving. Everything will be different. Sarah took the contract, the paper thin and cold in her trembling hand. She didn't read it. She knew she was signing away more than just business terms. She was entering a dangerous game with a player who dealt in shadows. With one last lingering look around her beloved failing bakery, Sarah signed. A predatory gleam lit Rex's eyes. The game had begun, and Sarah Miller had no idea what she had just unleashed. The bakery door locked for the day. Sarah slumped against the counter, the contract a stark white rectangle in her hand. Jake Sterling. The name, once meaningless, now resonated with a chilling power. A quick online search revealed a titan of fashion, a puppet master of image, a man who lived in a world galaxies away from her flower-dusted existence. Why her? Why this elaborate, unsettling offer? The questions hammered at her skull. The next morning, Jake arrived at 8 a.m. sharp, punctuality as sharp and ruthless as his tailored suit. His arrogance was a physical presence, grating against Sarah's raw nerves. She stood in her apron, deliberately unglamorous, her discomfort a shield. "Ready to begin?" he asked, his voice dripping with false cheer. "Begin what, exactly?" Sarah snapped, her patience already frayed. "You haven't explained a thing." Jake studied her, his gaze dissecting, analyzing. "We start with your image. The world judges, Sarah. It creates boxes. Those who don't fit are invisible. My job is to make you impossible to ignore." Sarah's laugh was devoid of humor. "Invisible? So you think I'm invisible?" Jake didn't flinch. "Not invisible, no, but irrelevant. Off the radar. We're going to change that." The tension crackled between them, thick and suffocating. Sarah felt like a specimen under a microscope, pinned and dissected by his cold, calculated gaze. "And what exactly do you suggest I wear while baking cupcakes, stilettos, and a tiara?" She spat, sarcasm dripping from her voice. Jake ignored the barb, pulling out his phone. "We're ready. Send them in." Moments later, the bakery door swung open and 3 people entered, trailing racks of clothing and makeup cases like an invading army. Stylists, image consultants. Sarah felt a wave of nausea. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, feeling exposed and violated. Jake watched her reaction, his eyes sharp and assessing. "If you want your bakery to survive, you need to become part of the process. If you don't believe in yourself, how can you expect anyone else to believe in your business?" His words, though laced with cruelty, struck a nerve. Her lack of confidence, her tendency to hide behind her baking, was a raw wound. "Transformation goes beyond the physical," Jake continued, his tone softening but still firm. "I want you to see your own potential. We start on the outside, but the real work is internal." Sarah shook her head, trying to regain her composure. "This isn't just about me, is it? There's something else going on here. I know you're not doing this because you care." A flicker of hesitation crossed Jake's face, quickly masked. "I'm a businessman, Sarah. Everything is in exchange. You gain, I gain. But that doesn't mean you can't benefit from this opportunity." "So that's it, isn't it?" Sarah murmured, anger simmering beneath the surface. "I'm just a project to you, a bet. What do you get in the end? Fame, money, or just the twisted satisfaction of proving you can mold anyone?" For the first time, Jake faltered. Sarah had touched something raw, something he hadn't expected. Maybe he himself didn't fully understand why he was so driven to transform her. He blinked, regaining his carefully constructed composure. "Don't worry about what I gain," he said, his voice controlled, devoid of emotion. "The only thing that matters right now is what you gain from this." Sarah stared at him, her gaze unwavering. Something was hidden, buried deep beneath his polished exterior. Secrets, and she was determined to unearth them. "Fine," she sighed, a reluctant surrender. "I'll play your game, but I won't let you turn me into someone I'm not." A cold smile touched Jake's lips. "We'll see." As the stylist swarmed her, measuring and prodding, Sarah felt a growing unease. Jake had a motive, a secret agenda. Unmasking it was now her only weapon. The following days were a whirlwind of forced transformations. Clothes that felt alien, makeup that masked her, and Jake's ever-present, critical gaze, dissecting her every flaw. The elegant clothes, the stylist's pronouncements, all felt like a costume, not her. Jake insisted it was necessary, that she needed to shed her old skin to be seen. "Stop thinking like the old Sarah," he'd say, his voice laced with disdain, as she stared at her unfamiliar reflection. "The fashion world is a shark tank. Fit in or be devoured." "What if I don't want to fit in?" Sarah challenged, her voice tight with resentment. "Can't I just be myself?" Jake chuckled, a chilling, humorless sound. Being yourself isn't going to save your bakery. He preyed on her vulnerability, her fear of failure, like a puppeteer manipulating strings. She felt trapped, fighting a war on two fronts: the crushing weight of the bakery's debt and the relentless pressure to become someone else. Who was Jake Sterling really? Why this obsession with her? What was he truly after? During a rare moment alone, Sarah confronted him. Jake, I know there's more to this. No one offers this kind of help without a hook. What's your real motivation? Jake turned slowly, a flicker of tension in his eyes. He was used to controlling every variable, but Sarah was a wild card, defying his calculations. For a fleeting moment, vulnerability flickered across his face, then vanished, replaced by his usual eye mask. Why the constant interrogation, Sarah? Can't you just accept an opportunity most people would kill for? Sarah crossed her arms, her gaze unwavering. I don't know you, Jake, and if you expect me to play along, I need to understand the game. Right now, I feel like a pawn in some twisted game you're playing. Jake moved closer, his presence imposing. He looked directly into her eyes, as if trying to gauge her breaking point. You want the truth, he whispered, his voice suddenly raw. A truth she hadn't anticipated. I'm a businessman. Yes, I make bets, and you are part of one. But it's not just that. There's something about you. Different, something I can't ignore. Sarah blinked, stunned by the unexpected admission. Sincerity from Jake Sterling? It felt surreal, almost jarring. And what exactly is that something? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, wary but intrigued. Jake recoiled, as if he'd revealed too much. His mask snapped back into place, cold and impenetrable. That's irrelevant. What matters is the process. And Sarah, if you want to save your precious bakery, you'll have to trust me. Trust. The word tasted like poison on Sarah's tongue, coming from Jake. How could she trust a man who admitted she was just a bet? Yet, his confession, however incomplete, hinted at something deeper, something he was desperately trying to conceal. He was testing her, probing her defenses. Sarah knew Jake wouldn't reveal everything at once. He was a master manipulator, playing a long game. Fine, she said, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. I'll trust the process. But inside, a silent vow solidified. She would uncover his secrets and use them against him. As stylists fussed, Sarah noticed a subtle shift in Jake. He was still distant, still critical, but his gaze held a new quality. Almost worried. He kept glancing at his watch, a nervous tick she'd never seen before. Do you have an important meeting? She asked, testing the waters. Jake startled, his attention snapping back to her, a flicker of unease in his eyes. Nothing for you to worry about, he dismissed quickly. Too quickly. But Sarah knew better. He was anxious, a feeling alien to his usual iron control. The carefully constructed facade was cracking. The mystery of Jake Sterling was unfolding, and Sarah sensed it was larger and darker than she could have imagined. The external transformation accelerated, a relentless barrage of makeovers and photo shoots. But a deeper, quieter shift was happening within Sarah. She was questioning everything: her life, her choices, her buried desires. The clothes, the makeup, felt superficial, yet they were forcing her to confront a side of herself she'd long suppressed. She was seeing her own reflection in a new light, not just as a baker, but as a woman, capable of more than she'd ever allowed herself to believe. But the nagging questions about Jake and his secrets persisted, casting a shadow over her nascent confidence. One afternoon, during a particularly grueling fitting, something shifted. Jake, watching from the sidelines as always, seemed different. His usual disdain was absent, replaced by a look Sarah couldn't quite decipher: vulnerability, admiration. For a fleeting moment, she saw him not as a ruthless mogul, but as a man lost, perhaps as lost as she was. After the stylist departed, leaving them alone in the suddenly quiet bakery, Sarah decided to push. Jake, she began, her voice steady, I need to ask again. What do you really want from all this? If it was just a bet, you'd be bored by now. There's something more, and you know it. Jake turned slowly, his expression unreadable. He was a master of control, but Sarah was chipping away at his carefully constructed walls. He hesitated, then sighed, crossing his arms, a gesture of uncharacteristic defensiveness. Sarah, there are things you wouldn't understand right now. I'm not exactly who you think I am. A chill ran down Sarah's spine. What do you mean by that? It was the clearest admission yet that the bet was just a smokescreen. Then make me understand, she pressed, moving closer. You can't keep playing these games without giving me answers. If you want me to trust you, you need to start being honest. Silence stretched, thick and heavy. Jake seemed to weigh his words, measuring how much to reveal. Finally, his voice dropped, a low, almost painful murmur. This bet, it's not just about you, it's about me too. I made this bet because I needed to prove something, not to them. He gestured vaguely towards the absent associates, but to myself. Sarah watched him closely, her heart pounding. Sincerity flickered in his eyes, a raw vulnerability she'd never witnessed before. The iron facade was crumbling, revealing a man wrestling with his own demons. "Prove what?" Sarah asked softly, surprised by the tenderness in her own voice. Jake looked directly into her eyes, an intensity that made her breath catch. "That I can still change, that I'm not just the monster everyone expects me to be." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken emotions. Sarah didn't know how to respond. She'd always seen him as impenetrable, a force of nature. Now, before her, stood a man fighting an internal war. "You think you're transforming me," Sarah said, choosing her words carefully. "But maybe I'm transforming you too." A low, humorless laugh escaped Jake. "You're more right than you know, Sarah." What did that mean? Intrigue and unease warred within Sarah. She was venturing into dangerous territory, drawn to Jake despite herself. The closer she got, the more she sensed the magnitude of his secrets that could shatter her. Their interaction shifted, the ice distance thawing, replaced by moments of unexpected vulnerability. Jake, stripped of his fashion mogul persona, seemed almost human, grappling with insecurities Sarah was only beginning to glimpse. He no longer treated her as a project, but as a person, with a growing respect that both intrigued and unsettled her. But the secrets, the unspoken darkness surrounding him remained. One evening, during a late fitting, Sarah broke the silence with the question that haunted her days. "Jake, have you thought about what happens after this? After the transformation is complete?" Jake paused, visibly taken aback. I haven't really thought about after." Sarah gave a wry smile. "That's a lie, and you know it. Someone like you always has a plan." Jake turned to the window, staring out at the city lights. Silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken emotions. Maybe after isn't so important," he said finally, his voice strangely hollow. But Sarah sensed the evasion, the truth buried beneath layers of carefully constructed lies. He was hiding something huge. Jake was becoming more real, more human to her. But the enigma remained, a dark cloud obscuring his true self. The transformation wasn't just about her appearance or her bakery. Jake was fighting a battle within himself, and Sarah, unwittingly, had become entangled in it. Unexpected changes rippled through both their lives. The superficial bet had cracked open, revealing a complex, volatile connection. Sarah's authenticity, her quiet strength, disarmed Jake in ways he couldn't comprehend. For the first time, he saw not a project, but a woman, with dreams and vulnerabilities that mirrored his own hidden fractures. Sarah, in turn, felt her own defenses softening, despite the nagging suspicion, the secrets still clinging to Jake like shadows. Moments of genuine connection pierced through the carefully constructed walls, hinting at a vulnerability that touched her deeply. But a part of her remained wary, knowing a storm was brewing beneath the surface. One evening, in the quiet of the bakery after a long day, Jake stood close, his gaze fixed on hers, an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. "Sarah," he began, his voice soft, yet charged with an unspoken weight. I need to tell you something." Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it, the moment of truth. But before he could utter another word, the sharp click of heels on the wooden floor shattered the fragile intimacy. The bakery door swung open, revealing a woman with ice-cold eyes and a predatory smile that instantly sent alarm bells ringing in Sarah's head. "Jake, darling," the woman purred, her voice dripping with venom and sarcasm. "Surprised to find you slumming it." Her gaze flicked to Sarah, dismissive, assessing. "And you must be the baker. The before picture, I presume." Jake stiffened, his entire body radiating tension. Amanda, a ghost from his past, resurrected at the worst possible moment. "This isn't a good time, Amanda," Jake said, his voice clipped, dangerous. Amanda laughed, a brittle, unpleasant sound. She turned back to Sarah, her eyes narrowed, sharp as shards of glass. "He hasn't told you, has he? About his methods? His little projects often leave collateral damage." Sarah frowned, unease tightening its grip. "Who are you?" Amanda's smile widened, cruel and knowing. "Someone who knows the real Jake Sterling, and if I were you, darling, I'd run. He has a knack for destroying everything he touches." Jake stepped forward, placing himself between Sarah and Amanda, a protective barrier. Enough, Amanda, he warned, his voice low and menacing. You don't belong here anymore. Amanda ignored him, her gaze fixed on Sarah, relishing her discomfort. Has he told you about your family, Sarah? Has he mentioned how he might be indirectly responsible for their little financial mishap? Sarah's breath hitched. Amanda's words landed like a physical blow. She turned to Jake, her eyes wide with dawning horror. What is she talking about, Jake? Her voice trembled, barely a whisper. What did you do to my family? Jake ran a hand through his hair, his face a mask of tormented guilt. Sarah, I didn't know, not about your family, not until after I accepted the bet. Sarah recoiled, the ground tilting beneath her feet. What do you mean? How were they involved? Amanda savored the moment, her smile widening into a predatory grin. Your dear Jake here was involved in a financial restructuring, shall we say, years ago. Some families were casualties. One of them was yours. He helped orchestrate your father's company's downfall, bankruptcy, ruin. The air seemed to vanish from Sarah's lungs. This can't be true, she stammered, tears blurring her vision. She looked at Jake, desperate for denial, for reassurance. But his silence, his stricken expression, confirmed the unthinkable. Sarah, I found out after, Jake finally choked out, his voice thick with remorse. After the bet. At first, I didn't connect the name, but when I started digging, researching you, I realized. Your father, he was one of the investors, one of the families, impacted by a series of strategic decisions I was instrumental in. Sarah stumbled back, her mind reeling. My father, he lost everything. He died after that. You destroyed my family. Jake reached for her, his hand outstretched, pleading. Sarah, I never wanted this. If I had known, I swear I would have. Sarah recoiled from his touch, a wave of nausea washing over her. Everything she thought she was building with Jake, the fragile trust, the burgeoning connection, shattered into a million pieces, poisoned by betrayal. You knew all along, and you tried to hide it from me. Amanda, watching the wreckage with cold satisfaction, interjected. He was just trying to save his own skin, darling, like he always does. But honey, the rabbit hole goes deeper than you think. There's more that Jake hasn't told you. Sarah turned to Amanda, confusion and terror twisting in her gut. Amanda laughed, a dark, chilling sound. Oh, sweetheart, you're just scratching the surface. Jake Sterling isn't the man you think he is. He's ruthless. He destroys everything. Sarah swung back to Jake, her eyes burning with pain and desperate questions. What is she talking about? What else are you hiding? Jake stood frozen, his face ashen. He didn't know how to unravel the tangled web of lies, how to confess the full depth of his culpability. The silence in the bakery was deafening, heavy with unspoken truths and devastating revelations. Sarah stood there, staring at Jake, the man who had become her unlikely confidant, her potential lover, and now the architect of her family's destruction. Amanda's words echoed in her mind, each syllable a hammer blow. Everything she believed about Jake, about herself, about the fragile hope that had begun to blossom, was crumbling into dust. The ground beneath her feet had given way. The heat of rage mingled with the ice grip of despair, consumed her. You knew it was my father, Sarah choked out, her voice raw with anguish. And you did all this just to use me? Is this part of your plan? To destroy what's left of my family, to crush me and my bakery too? Jake lowered his head, unable to meet her shattered gaze. Sarah, please just listen to me. I know I made terrible mistakes. I know what I did is unforgivable. But in the beginning, I didn't know who you were. Only after I took the bet, when I started digging into your background, did I find out. Sarah took a step back, the chasm widening between them. And what did you do with that discovery, Jake? You decided it was easier to keep deceiving me, pretending everything was fine, while burying this monstrous secret? Her voice broke, cracking under the weight of betrayal. What else are you hiding? Jake sighed, running a trembling hand through his hair. He knew this moment was inevitable, but the raw agony in Sarah's eyes was more devastating than he could have imagined. He hesitated, then plunged into the abyss of truth. Your father, Jake began, his voice barely audible, thick with guilt. He came to me before everything fell apart. He was desperate, Sarah. He begged me for help. He knew his company was collapsing. He knew he'd made mistakes. But he believed He believed there was still a chance. He asked me to help him rebuild, to save what was left of your family's business. Sarah blinked, reeling from the unexpected revelation. Her father, her proud, stoic father, had begged Jake for help, the same man who had orchestrated his downfall. And what did you do? She asked, her voice a fragile thread. Jake closed his eyes, the weight of his guilt crushing him. I ignored him. At that time, I was so consumed by my own ambition, so blinded by success. I convinced myself your father's failure was inevitable. I let him sink, Sarah. I could have helped him. I could have done something. But I didn't. A strangled sob escaped Sarah's lips. The pieces clicked into place, forming a horrifying picture of betrayal and indifference. Her father, the man she'd idolized, had pleaded for salvation from the very man who had condemned him. You let him die, Sarah whispered, her voice trembling with raw, agonizing pain. My father, he died believing he was a failure. He died ashamed of what happened to our family, and it was all because of you. Jake took a step towards her, his face etched with despair. Sarah, if I could go back, if I could undo everything, I would. I never wanted this to happen. I swear. When I got closer to you, everything changed. I saw what I'd done, and I regretted it deeply. But Sarah couldn't hear his pleas, his hollow promises. She was drowning in a sea of pain, the waves of betrayal crashing over her. Everything she had built, the bakery, her fragile connection with Jake, was tainted, poisoned by his lies. I don't know if I can forgive you, she choked out, her voice breaking. I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at you without remembering what you did to my father, to my family. Jake reached out, his hand hovering in the air, desperate to touch her, to bridge the chasm that had opened between them. Sarah, I understand what you're feeling. I know you have every right to hate me, but please let me try to make this right. I don't want to lose you. Sarah shook her head, tears streaming down her face, hot and relentless. You've already lost me, Jake. I trusted you. I started to feel something for you, but now all I see is betrayal. The tension in the bakery was suffocating, a suffocating weight of guilt and heartbreak. Jake was desperate, clawing for a chance at redemption, at forgiveness. But the pain Sarah felt was too raw, too profound. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't see beyond the gaping wound of his betrayal. I know I hurt you, Jake continued, his voice strained, barely audible. But I'm willing to do anything to make up for my mistakes. I just need one chance. Sarah turned away, seeking escape, seeking air, seeking any shred of strength to navigate the wreckage of her world. She knew Jake was pleading for absolution, for a chance to atone, but the pain, the betrayal, was too overwhelming, too immediate. She didn't know if she could ever forgive him. Before she could utter a word, Amanda, who had been a silent, venomous spectator, interjected again, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Sarah, don't be naive. Jake hasn't changed. He's always been like this, self-serving, ruthless. Do you really think he's sorry, or is he just trying to salvage what's left of his image? Sarah turned on Amanda, anger finally igniting, a burning counterpoint to the icy despair. Amanda had been a shadowy presence, a malevolent force lurking in the background. You knew, didn't you? Sarah said, her voice trembling with fury. You knew what Jake had done to my father, and yet you took advantage of it. Why are you here now, to twist the knife, to revel in my pain? Amanda laughed, a cold, cruel sound that echoed in the quiet bakery. I'm here to open your eyes, sweetheart. Jake Sterling was never the hero of your story, and now you know just how low he can stoop. But remember, darling, he's not the only one to blame. Your father, he had secrets too, secrets that Jake hasn't told you yet. Sarah spun back to Jake, her heart pounding, a fresh wave of fear washing over her. What else are you hiding from me, Jake? Jake closed his eyes, defeated. He knew he could no longer shield her from the full, devastating truth. Your father, he whispered, his voice heavy with shame. He made one last deal with me. He offered everything he had left. His personal assets, his savings, even the bakery. He offered it all to try and save his company, to save his family. But I refused. I thought it would be better to just let everything collapse, for good. Those words shattered Sarah completely. Her father, in his final act of desperation, had offered everything to save what he loved. And Jake had coldly, deliberately refused. He hadn't just destroyed her family's business. He had crushed her father's spirit, leaving him to face ruin alone. The weight of it all was unbearable.